On today's show, I am joined by David Lee to dig in a little bit on EuroBasket. And for the Hawks, that means a great deal of former number one overall pick Zaccharie Risacher. We'll get into how he looks with France, Vit Krejci, and much more. And it's coming up right now.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2047 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on Labor Day here to begin the month of September. Today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances right now with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for half off your first year. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. That includes Apple and Spotify. We are also on YouTube, so please like this video and subscribe right now as you're watching, and tell your friends about the podcast. We'll begin the new month with a guest on today's show. His name is David Lee. He is one of the best people, I think, covering the Hawks in the online space. David is awesome breaking things down for Atlanta. Big picture. This is actually a long conversation that I'm going to break up into multiple episodes. Only one, though, is posting today. It's kind of a holiday edition of the show on Labor Day, and we'll be talking about EuroBasket on this particular edition of the podcast, and mostly discussing Zaccharie Risacher and how he's looked for the Hawks so far with Team France in EuroBasket. A little bit of Vit Krejci at the end of this discussion, and then later on this week, David will be back. We'll be talking about Porzingis, talking about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard, the new additions of the Hawks. So stay tuned and please subscribe to the show. I'll have that dropping later on this week. So without any further delay, we'll dive in right now to EuroBasket, Zaccharie Risacher, and more with David Lee. Here we go. I'm joined now by a good friend of the pod, at least second or third time guest. I'm not sure which one of those, but not your first time on the podcast. David Lee is here. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Always a good time when you reach out, and a lot of Hawks-related topics with all the EuroBasket stuff going on, random signings. So, looking forward to talking through it.
I appreciate you being here. Yeah, I always people that have their own. I have this problem with Kevin Chouinard, who I spent a lot of time with too. I feel like I want to have him on more, but he has his own stuff, and I don't want to bug you to come on my show when you have your own stuff, which I want you to plug. We'll plug it too. But you're busy, man, and like me, it's not the only thing that you do in life. You're not full time covering the Hawks, so I appreciate you giving me the time. And it's actually Labor Day, which is even when I asked you, I don't think I thought about it being Labor Day. So my apologies for making you do this on a holiday. I appreciate your willingness, and we'll dive in. I mean, I originally asked you, and we're going to do this, to talk about a lot of the new guys with the Hawks, right? Mm-hmm. But because it's smack dab in the middle, basically, of EuroBasket group play, and I know you've been watching and tweeting about it and stuff. I want to talk about Zaccharie Risacher to start with, because I have mentioned him a few times in the show. I'm trying not to do full breakdowns of EuroBasket games. It's like a tough balance, but he's been playing pretty well in my view. I've been impressed with what I've seen, and I wanted to ask you broadly. It's a very natural jumping point for him, year one to year two. That jump is always interesting to chronicle, number one overall pick and all that. But what have you seen so far with France, not only in EuroBasket games, but I know you're like me, even watching the friendlies and stuff, we've seen a decent chunk of him now the last couple of weeks. What stood out to you as far as notable developments with Zach?
Yeah, what I really love about EuroBasket is when I watch a Hawks game, I'm watching everyone. But when I'm watching these individual EuroBasket games, I can really focus on Zach and see what he's working on, what he still needs some areas to grow in. And I think it's been very clear he's been a lot more aggressive on the glass. And what's awesome about Zach is that it would be awesome if he comes in and starts averaging 25 points per game and becomes a primary offensive option. But he doesn't need that to be a great NBA player, because he functions so well without the ball. France is not the best constructed team, in my opinion. They're routinely running wings over Zach that aren't producing the same amount of offensive impact that Zach is. And he also just seamlessly fits in next to everyone because he's constantly moving. And so there's countless examples. Every game I'm watching him move and create a shot from someone else without touching the ball the entire possession. But because he times his cuts perfectly, because he exchanges with guys, because he goes to the dunker spot, because he lifts at the perfect time for a drive, because he relocates to the wing, he creates these pockets of advantages that ball handler can now take advantage of. And so that's always been part of his game. We saw that in his rookie season. But what I think the biggest thing that I've seen is not just aggression on the glass, which is huge, but also His increased strength. So we've seen some aggression at the rim. We've seen him high pointing rebounds, which wasn't something he did a ton in his rookie season. He's taking blows to the test a little bit better. He led France in scoring in their last game against Israel, and he's only playing 18 minutes a game throughout the tournament. But he has probably been their most consistently impactful. Like, he got in the foul trouble against Israel in the prior game as well, which has limited some of that. But I love that we can see the translation of like the baseline skills that he has, which is movement within an offense. But then the growth areas are, okay, how much more can he put the ball on the floor, or how much more can he be trusted to drive the ball? And there were a couple of moments again against Israel and against I think it was Slovenia or Serbia, where he was able to just wrap the pass around guys or dribble and attack closeout, and like that's that next level.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. A lot of the, what you don't want to do is box score scout on EuroBasket games. Like, I know you're not doing that, but people, I've seen that. It's like, number one, he's not playing a lot. He played more in the last game, like you said, 24 minutes in the last game, 18 minutes. He would have played more in the Slovenia game if he got. Actually, I thought it was impressive. He was guarding Luka for part of that, which is always interesting. Hawks fan reactions are always funny when Luka's involved. But Zach, I think, improved as the game went along. He got a couple early fouls, kind of being, kind of got maybe veteraned by Luka a few times.
Yeah.
But also, the physicality is like the number one thing that I was looking for with Zach. There are already conspiracies, I'm sure you've seen this too, of how tall Zach is now. Because some of the team photos with France, like, he's listed the same height as guys that I think he's clearly taller than in some of these photos. Is he 6'10" now? Is he, all these things? Maybe he is. I don't know. But it's more the bulk, the physicality, the strength, which I think also turns into athleticism, if that makes sense. Like, you become more explosive and more functionally athletic when you are a little bit stronger. And we all knew that was going to happen last year. He knew it. The team knew it. Like, he got blown off spots a lot. He was skinny. I mean, he came in really thin, really young for a rookie, and that showed. But it's not going to all fix itself overnight. But, I mean, he's not bouncing off guys, like you said. Like, it's not. He's playing through contact better. Some of the drives, I know our mutual friend Tyler Jones has been on this quite a bit. Like, some of Zach's drives have looked encouraging in a way he wasn't doing a ton of last year. There was a little flashes of that, but I wonder how much of that too goes into him being more comfortable physically, to where if you're getting downhill, you're not worried about, getting knocked off your spot and being in the wrong place and being off balance, turn the ball over or something like that. Just being more confident, more assertive, maybe is the right word. That's like what I've been looking for. And I've seen that for the most part from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. And I mean, the raw numbers won't shock you. To your point, you shouldn't necessarily box score watch because of the limited amount of minutes he's played, but he's at 12 points, 2.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists in 18 minutes. Per 36, you're looking at 24 points per 36, 5.4 rebounds, 4.6 assists, and then 1.4 steals and 2 blocks. And I think that's more in line of what, if you, of course, give or take, but if you extrapolate that across a normal NBA sample size, if it's a 48-minute game, he's playing 36 minutes. I think that what he's put on tape in the time that he's been on the floor, it's not without the realm of the possibility that he's within 18 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 stocks per game. And I think that really puts it a better perspective of what he's been doing, because there's moments where he's pinning shots against the backboard in transition where you're seeing a combination of the timing, but also, to your point, the confidence and the self-assurance to even go for a shot like that is something that I feel like we didn't see a ton in his rookie season. Now, he does have moments where I'm not sure what this is, but it's something I've consistently noticed, especially in his rookie year. He gets really locked in on his individual assignment, and I think that really dampens up his ability to be an impactful defender. And I'm hoping that, the more he plays Dyson, the more he plays with Nikhil, those guys are really good and really active off the ball. It'll help him realize that at 6'10", with his length and his horizontal mobility, you can recover back out to your man. I'd much rather I want to see him take more risk getting in the passing lanes. I want to see him dig on guys. In that particular game against Serbia, there were multiple times where he would let a drive go past him because he was too stuck to his man, or he let the ball get entered to the short roll because he wasn't able to dig there. And it's like, and then he ended up getting beat backdoor because he chases his man all the way up the entire length of the floor, almost to half court. There's 2 seconds on the clock, and he goes backdoor. And so there are still things to be refined, right? Like, and that's what happens when you have a younger player. He's a solid defender in the context of, like, if his man is on the ball, then he can be engaged and beat him to the spot. We saw that with Luka. It gets a little bit more dicey when there's a screen involved or he's having to engage off the ball. But those are things that I do think, like, certain guys will never get better at, but there's nothing that I've seen from Zach's work ethic, or even some of the things that we heard preach after. Like, I don't think he's not aware of that, or that I don't think he'll try to work better to be at. But that's definitely an area that if I was on the Hawks coaching staff, it's like, You're 6'10". Use your wingspan, be more aggressive. And it's important too, because I had a commenter. I respond with a clip from the NBA season in his rookie year where Trey comes up for the blitz. He's out of position against Cade. And because he's out of position and Zach's so glued to his man on the weak side, when the ball gets swung to Trey's man, Zach isn't in position to bounce that assignment over. And so when you have Trey, it's not good enough. It's not enough to just be 6'10" and be strong enough to withstand a drive yourself. You have to be active within the scheme. And so he's good positionally. Like, he knows his rotations. He's timely with that, but he doesn't do well when things don't go as expected. And that's something that I want to continue to see him grow in, because that's what will ultimately make the Hawks a great team defense, because he has the size and the ability to make so. Like, when he has those individual plays in transition, it's like, man, if we could unlock this a little bit more in the half court, then I think the Hawks have a really, really strong defensive infrastructure around Trey. And it has to start with Zach, because we already know that Dyson is solid, Onyeka is solid, Jalen has his moments as a weak side rim protector as well.
A lot of people can't name all the financial accounts, even what they are worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you have the full picture, you'll end up leaving money on the table. And that is why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together into one clean, easy-to-use interface, either on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've been putting up organizing your finances before, Monarch is absolutely for you. And at Monarch Money, they do a heavy lifting for you. You actually leave all of your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. For me, I linked all of my accounts together in Monarch Money, and immediately I spotted some of the monthly costs that I actually get rid of in my life. Canceling those commitments alone, saving money each and every month. You can maximize your investments, increase your saving rates, easily review your finances with either a financial advisor or with your partner, and generally keep a clear-eyed view of your financial health, both the short term and the long term. Do not let financial opportunities slip through the cracks, and join Monarch Money right now by using code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year, and the place to go is monarchmoney.com, and the code is LOCKEDONNBA. It was one of the knocks that I thought was like a reasonable one for people that I think like that, and this is a positive, people that dig in a little bit more on draft prospects, was, okay, what kind of impact can Zach have off the ball as a defender? Because you saw that on film before he got to the Hawks. And it doesn't, I mean, everything you led with the way that he makes these small adjustments on offense to create space. And like, he definitely has a feel for the game. Some guys, some guys you worry about their feel, and that's like a inherent problem that limits guys, right? And I don't feel that way about Risacher. I never have. I was really impressed, especially when you factor in he's 19 years old. But for any rookie, I was impressed with the way he felt and the way he fit in last year and did little things that don't always show up on box scores. But you're right. There's moments defensively where is it the most, I don't know if it's not natural or what it is about. Maybe it was like the way your coach younger too. One thing about Zach that can be, I think it's mostly good, but can be not as good, is that he's very willing to just be a guy on the court. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but like, he was not always the guy in a way that most players are when they're drafted like that or come up like that, especially American players, honestly. And he's just is very willing to play a role. And in France, when he was coming up, especially later on in his tenure, he was like, at one point, he was like the on-ball defender stopper guy on a roster. And he just kind of did that. And it was fine. And he was good at it. But he, I think he almost needs to get more confident. I don't mean that in a bad way, but just like realize you're really good. Like be able to go make, do some more things that are like outlandish almost. I would rather have him make a lot, a lot of young guys make errors that are like outlandish in nature. Like they think they're too good and they do stuff that they can't do. You don't want a ton of that, but I would love to see Zach do something every once in a while where I'm like, oh, that was actually too aggressive, Zach. Like, go ahead and make a mistake like that every once in a while. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do think like I don't think the Hawks view it this way, but I would say maybe fans might. But there's like an impetus on like expectations going into the season, and so where I feel like it would have been better received by the fan base is if he was doing that in the previous year, right? And I also do somewhat to an extent believe that guys are who they are, and it's very much a mentality thing, but also like your experience on the basketball court. To your point, he's always played a role. Now, I am curious on how you feel about the comments that came out before the EuroBasket, where he said something along the lines of like, I want to experiment with the ball in my hands. Because I think that's an encouraging sign to me, because I don't see Zach as like the type of guy who would prioritize his own development over what's good for the team. But I do think you need a little bit of hubris if you're going to be not just a star, but like any sort of respectable creator for yourself, I mean, it's inherently selfish. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go get a bucket for me. You know, I'm not going to do it and create a shot for someone else. And I don't know if he has that selfishness. I don't know if I think he is a very much an egalitarian, like, I'm going to sacrifice everything for the team type of person. And so what I really wish we could have seen is France lean into what maybe he can do on the ball. I don't think it could be an indictment of how they view him as a creator. I don't think it necessarily means he'll never be a creator, but the fact that France has refused to put the ball in his hands to any extent of the imagination, I think is a meaningful thing for me to keep in mind coming into this season. Because if there is any sort of, I would say, like, entity or organization that has an understanding of what Zach is capable of, I would say maybe it could be the national team that he's played for a while of. You know what I mean? And I do think for this France team, if you look at their guards, none of them are pure facilitators. They're all shot creators. And so I also think that the guys he's surrounded with don't necessarily give him the chance to do so. And they also are pretty decent pull-up shooters themselves. So I don't want it to sound like I think that I agree with France saying that he shouldn't get on the ball at all. I think but there are also moments where it's like, okay, I can see why he isn't on the ball. For example, Sarr came to set a screen, and as Risacher comes across the screen, mind you, he's such a dangerous three-point shooter. I don't want him curling into the arc I don't want him catching inside the arc when he's curling. I'd much rather you catch and shoot a movement three, or even set your feet and shoot that three, because his defender went under the screen. Now, because his defender went under the screen, he drove right into Sarr's man. Now it's a dead possession. He kicks it back out. He relocates. So it's like when he has these chances, he's not producing, and it's so sparse that I don't think it's like an incredible endowment or like he can't ever do it. But it's something to keep in mind. Where it's like I wanted to see more of it. We haven't seen it so far. And yet he's still been impactful. And yet he's still been the best wing for France. And yet he's still grown as a rebounder. And yet he's been awesome in transition, not just off the ball, but on the ball. Like, I mean, he stole the ball, was in the passing lanes, took 3 dribbles from inside his own three-point arc, and then was finished with a layup on the other end. So transition, movement within the half court, rebounding, the defensive playmaking is looking a little bit better. The transition blocks are awesome. I wish we could have seen a little bit more on the ball, but I don't think that means it will never come.
Yeah, that play that you just referenced where he went the length of the court, I occasionally, I'm sure you hear this too, like that he's not athletic. And it's like, you got to watch. He's obviously athletic. He's not like nuclear dunk contest athletic, and he is kind of more rangy and smooth, but like he obviously is a pretty good athlete. He's got the length of things that I think get overlooked sometimes. But to your point about, I saw that clip of Zach. I wasn't terribly surprised. He is a confident kid. Mm-hmm. But also there is that balance, and I agree with you. He would probably lean towards it being a team guy for sure over himself. That's part of the reason why the Hawks love him so much. Like right. But there is a place where, I'm sure, in fact, I know he was coached to do this even more last year. Like they want him to be confident and assertive in his role, and I think that there's a balance where the Hawks are going to need him to be an option on the ball. Yep. It may not be now, but like eventually, more and more, they're going to need that. And I think I'm sure they've told him that. So between that messaging and your natural thing, because look, not every player, a lot of players, including Zach, I think, when shots were going down last year, you could tell he was feeling himself sometimes, and he'd ramp it up a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. Like it was more in a catch and shoot way than it was like an on-ball creation way. But you could kind of feel the confidence grow in him, and he was letting it rip a little bit more when it was going well. That's very natural for anybody to do, but he's got a little bit of that swagger in him. Like some of those big games where he had 30, 35 points, he was letting it go and took some aggressive shots in those games. You have to get to 35 points or whatever it was going to be, but he's got a little bit of that in him. And I wonder, in fact, I know almost that they've told him at some point, hey, Zach, right now you're kind of playing a role. You know, he was the kind of the quasi starter last year. He started, but didn't close a lot of games. By his second, third, fourth season, like they're going to need him to be on the ball sometimes. He's not going to be Klay Thompson where he's just like only catch and shooting his entire career. That's not going to happen. Like he's never going to be, well, I shouldn't say never. He probably won't be the number one option primary creator guy. I don't really see that as a like likely outcome. Is it possible? Sure. But they'd love for him to average 20 points a game at some point. Yeah. And you kind of have to, most guys, unless you're a Klay alien, like most guys, you have to have some on-ball creation to be able to do that.
And I wonder, and this is more of like a philosophical thing as opposed to specifically to Zach. A lot of times when you see these guys who begin as 3-and-D players, or eventually transition to being a 3-and-D player, they have some track record of creating for themselves. Like I think of Mikal Bridges a lot. So Mikal, for example, comes in for Phoenix, plays a role, He's able to go to Brooklyn where he gets his shots up, his usage ramps up. And then now he comes into New York and he's more confident getting into his mid-ranger. Or Aaron Gordon in the reverse was in Orlando, primary offensive option. And because of his reps where he was creating for himself, now he's more effective and efficient next to Jokic. PJ Washington's another good example. Do you think it necessarily has to follow that? Like, do you think the development as like a secondary creator or even someone who can create for themselves can happen within the context of beginning within the team role? Because like the only, of course, like I don't want to compliment to Kawhi, but like those are the only instances that I can think of off the top of my head where you have someone who wasn't viewed that way, didn't get those opportunities, didn't have a massive jump in usage, but eventually became a great creator for themselves. And so Kawhi's the only one who's coming to mind. I'm sure there are others. I'm just curious if you think that there's room within this current Hawks team with the way it's constructed for Zach to get those necessary reps or to get the amount of responsibility necessary to get to that level.
Yeah, it's a good point. And, you know, occasionally it's good to not fail, but I think about Aaron Gordon's example. Like, I think it became pretty clear he wasn't going to be able to do that. Like, he wasn't going to be a primary scorer on ball guy, but you're right. The reps helped him and everything else. And yeah, in Atlanta, maybe there's a pathway. And I think, you know, Kawhi's a good example. I'm trying to think of other ones too, where like maybe you scale up gradually. He is so young where, you know, Jalen's obviously the number 2 option. You got Trey, you have Jalen, but like, you know, Porzingis is probably there's Porzingis stuff, which we'll talk about in a second. He's the wrinkle that we don't know how that's going to look yet. But as far as like through the lens of last year's team, if you could have just like ramped him up and eventually like, if you become kind of the 3rd option, which means a lot of times you're the 2nd option on the court and sometimes you're the 1st option on the court. Like there are some ways to get reps doing that without having to be that kind of guy for 40 games. Like playing with Trey is actually makes everybody's life easier anyway. With Jalen out, like if Jalen had been out the second half of this season versus the second half of last season, when it was Zach's 2nd year, they might have played through Zach more than they did. You know, like I don't think he was ready for that last year, but that kind of opportunity could be a way to do it subtly versus like having to have a huge role change, if that makes sense. And they're not overwhelmed with like I mean, that's a question they actually have on this roster is like, do they have enough creators and get guys with, so maybe there's room for that to have it be more gradual, but you're right. Sometimes you kind of think you need to have the opportunity to do that. And the Mikal one's really interesting because he was like even in college was like kind of a pure role player. He was a rare example of a guy who was a lottery pick who was like really playing a role in college even. And then never did that. And then went to Brooklyn, did it, and then went back. That's not usually how that goes. You know, most guys are like the number 1 guy in college and have to go away from that. And he never, and his is an interesting example because he's a guy that gets comped to Zach sometimes. Like Zach, everybody's always wants comps for Zach, and I get why. Maybe that is one where like Mikal, I think we probably know is not a real number 1. He was number 1 guy in Brooklyn sometimes, but like that's not really his best role. We all know that. Maybe that's a reasonable like current Mikal is maybe like a interesting Zach path. This is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is almost here. FanDuel's making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, if you're a new customer, you can bet for just $5. And if your first bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. FanDuel is great because if it's however you like to bet, they have it for you at FanDuel Sportsbook, whether it's player props, same-game parlays, straight bets, futures, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's all there for you at FanDuel. And also, make every game more exciting at FanDuel, whether you're watching your favorite teams or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineups, no matter what they have. It comes to every single sport as well, all the way across the board from the NFL, college football, the NBA, of course, baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing. They have boxing, MMA, and so much more. FanDuel is quick. It's easier. They're also fast to pay out when you win, and it's the best way to add a little bit more energy to your Sundays. So the question is, are you ready to play at FanDuel Sportsbook? Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That is FanDuel.com. Put your first $5 bet and get $300 in bonus bets. Check it out today at FanDuel.com.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to keep tracking. I think that I would never really. I do think there's a line between like, okay, this guy's young enough to be anything, and like I'm not writing this guy off because he's young. And so I don't think that the realm of possibilities is endless, and that anything will happen. But I also think it's kind of reductive to say, hey, he's who he is right now. And I don't think there's any reason to believe so, because even if he doesn't become that creator, like we mentioned in the beginning, I mean, there's so many other additional things that he can do just by virtue of getting stronger. Like his baseline for being a replacement level NBA player is ridiculously high for his age. Like the outcomes are usually a lot more variable for a guy like this. And that certainty is really nice for a Hawks team that needs some certainty at that spot. I mean, like wing has been very tough for us to find a consistent contributor. So it's not going to be, there's not like this wicked jagged path where he could fall off a cliff and all of a sudden, like we'll have a massive hole at the 3 spot. But I do think his higher outcomes are probably a lot less likely than I'd say. Like I've always felt very comfortable that he's going to be an NBA player. Now, to his extent to what stardom, I think that's where you get a little bit more. I'm not exactly sure what that looks like.
I was going to ask you as part of this, and we're going to get to Vit and Chris Apps and Nikhil, and I might chop this up, and that's what you have to do on the spot. When you work for a network, David, you have to like make things go in little boxes. It's actually hard sometimes. But on Risacher, because I don't want to get, it's good. It's a good conversation. That is one of the questions I get asked probably the most, and I'm sure you do too, is like, what's that going to look like in year 2, year 3? And then when you're the number 1 overall pick, it's like very natural that would be the question, especially when everybody also heard conflicting messaging about that draft class and what Zach could be and all that. And my go-to has been, I haven't done my deep dive on my player. I was waiting for EuroBasket to be over, honestly, to get that in with Zach. But it's like my general operating now is I am very, very confident Zach's going to be like a high-end starter in the NBA. And that is, at that position, extremely valuable. Like, no matter what. And I'm not saying that's his floor. I'm not saying that's a ceiling by any means, but like I'm very, very confident at that point. And that might seem like I'm downplaying it, and I'm really not, because that is such a valuable thing to have on your roster. A 6'9", 6'10", high level starter forward is like gold. Every team wants those guys, right? That feels like kind of a median for me. Like I think there's still some room above that. I am generally cautious in like star level outcomes. But I land somewhere between. I was big on last year having reasonable expectations for him and not comping him to number 1 overall picks, because that's not his fault. Like comparing him to like number 1 overall pick baseline is not reasonable, because last year didn't really have one of those guys, and he isn't one of those kind of pedigree guys. But yeah, there's definitely a world where he's a star. Like I don't think he's going to be like the 3rd best player in the league. But if he's a 4-time All-Star, will I be surprised? No. I won't be surprised by that whatsoever. He has to hit some baseline stuff, and it might look differently than a lot of star level profiles might. Maybe he's the kind of star that's like I'm going to go, and this is box scory on purpose, so my apologies, but like maybe he's the kind of guy that averages 22, 7, and 4, and with high level defense and shoots the 3 well. Like that's not a top 5 player in the league profile, but that's a like top 25 player in the league profile, and that's an all-star. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think about guys like Chris Middleton or Sean Marion, Danny Granger, even like a lower level.
By the way, you're really young to like pulling out Danny Granger. I appreciate that. Shouts to you. For that.
Danny Granger was like, he's one of my guys in 2K. Like I love using him, but like those guys are like slower development speeds. I thought Marion, he popped a little bit earlier because he was really good in college, but like those guys took time to get where they are, and they developed in the context of their roles. And I do think there are things about them that if you go back and look at it, you're like, okay, I can see how they got here. It wouldn't be as big of a jump for Zach though. Like I don't think like if Zach one day is averaging 20, 24, we're not going to be like, okay, where did that come from? Like it's because his baseline efficiency, his first couple games, I mean, he was smoking open shots. Now all it takes is and we talked a little bit. I talked a little bit about the mechanics on my pod, but like these small tweaks that he's doing at 6'10" make a lot of a difference. Like he's shooting faster. He's getting to his apex faster. He's shooting them contested. He's shooting them over players in a way that he didn't really do that. And so playing bigger, not just with his physicality, with his overall like strength, but playing bigger in general, using that 6'10" frame, because he still has some inefficiencies closing out. You watch him close out, he kind of short jumps. He doesn't use all of his length. Like he has a lot of ways. Like if he cleans up the mechanics, then that's a good NBA player. Then you start talking about all the other things, and that's where we get into the realm of the possibilities where, the Hawks are going to be looking back and saying, hey, maybe we got the best player from this draft class. And I think that's not ridiculous to say that.
No, it's not. And they think that they did. Of course, that's the guy they chose. But it also, it's also an expected value proposition. Not to get into the draft thing, but like if you don't see a guy in a draft class that's like a definite superstar, maybe you think expected value, like this is our guy, and they obviously love him. And we can move on from Zach, but it's really interesting. He's a fascinating player this year. and I wanted to make sure we got into him a little bit because the new guys are fun, and we're gonna get to the new guys. But Zach is a big story and ongoing because France is not like the other guy we're about to talk about right now. Unlike Vit's time at EuroBasket is going to be 5 games and done. They're 0-4. Vit's team's 0-4. Zach and as we're talking, France is 2-1. They're probably going to keep playing. At least maybe keep playing despite the flawed roster, and they do have a flawed roster with France this summer. But we'll talk about Zach later. Before we move on to the new guys, I wanted to at least talk about Vit real fast. Won't be as long as Zach. He's in a bad spot. That's my my broad statement about Vit and EuroBasket. I got a pretty long message from a Patreon subscriber, and shouts to you. I won't name the person because they didn't tell me to, but it was like concern about Vit because they're watching. And I'm like, my number one thing is that Vit's role with Czech Republic and Vit's system in Czech Republic is not anything like what he's going to do with the Hawks. So I don't mean this in a negative way. I almost don't care. Is that correct? I mean, I'm not writing it off. Like I'm still watching Vit's games, but like nothing about that is replicable. The team is terrible, all due respect, and he's the best player on the team, the only NBA player on the team, and he's not equipped to do that at this level. And I like Vit. Like I think Vit's a top 10 guy on the roster. Like he's a real player. But this is not a situation that I'm loving for Vit.
You said it perfectly. I mean, it's almost like something you have to dismiss. I was thinking about doing a video on TikTok, like, okay, here's what's happening in EuroBasket so far. This is what you should care about. This is what you should just like not even think about. Like there are certain performances or styles of play that matter in EuroBasket, and that's going to be the guys who are running the offense for the most part. Like these NBA guys, like for example, when Lauri Markkanen came in the EuroBasket in 22 and he dominated, I remember I tweeted at the time, I was like, this is the beginning of an MIP year, not because of just the box score production, but because of the way he was playing. And so it's not just about the production, it's about the role and how replicable it is in the NBA, if it can scale up, if it will scale down. And to your point, there's just no way Vit would ever be tasked with this much offensive responsibility. And we see in the Hawks, like he's at his best attacking, playing within motion, off the catch. He's not getting much of that. Also, Czechia is in a very tough group. Like this is the one with Latvia, Serbia. They also have Turkey, which has been like the best team in the tournament. Probably at this point.
Turkey is currently, as we're talking, 4-0 with a plus 95 point differential.
Yeah. Like they gave KP some problems too, and so that particular group is probably the best in the field. And so, unfortunately for Portugal and Czechia, it's in Estonia as well. One of those three will get in, probably Portugal, but they kind of got a bad look at the draw, and so it hasn't helped Vit much at all.
No, and I felt bad because I'm trying to be comprehensive about the Hawks, and they have 3 guys playing in EuroBasket. It was going to be 4. At least there was maybe I thought it could be 4 with Eli Njai, and then he didn't end up. There was an injury, he didn't end up going, and all the things. So it's 3 guys, and it's obviously Porzingis and Risacher are playing a lot and playing well on pretty good teams, and then there's Vit, and it's like no one outside of the sickos is tuning in to like Czechia, Estonia either. Like I get they're only looking for what Vit did, and some of the box score lines have been ugly. Like for instance, I think Vit shooting. I'm just gonna double check this. Yeah, Vit is shooting 14% from 3, and it's like one thing I don't care about is that like Vit shot 40% plus 2 years in a row in the NBA on a lot of volume. Like I don't think Vit's suddenly a bad shooter. He's shooting poorly in EuroBasket. So I don't want to dismiss it in out of hand. Is there anything you've seen for Vit that you think is notable in EuroBasket? If the answer is no, that's fine. But I mean, a lot of the Czechia games have been early. I also haven't watched, but from what I have seen, like I just think it is going to be helpful for him. Like it's a small microcosm of what we're talking about, like with Mikal Bridges, like getting reps as the guy is never a bad thing. For him, it's not going to be okay. Now I'm going to start doing this in the NBA. It's more so like, okay, now I have a better feel for when I can try to attack this, or I know my limitations a little bit better, or I know how to like function as someone who's getting a lot of defenses thrown at him. Because I do think there could be times where we may need to lean on Vit in the second unit or as a committee. And so it's like, I don't think it's a bad thing he's getting more ball handling experience, but I mean, outside of him dunking and then like not landing on his back, I don't really have much else. Cause like, he really hurt himself in that Orlando game, unfortunately, that he got undercut, but it was good to see him, at least be able to get back to his shoulder a little bit. But I think his overall aggression, the fact that he's getting shots up, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at him getting reps, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of that we can actually take away reliably from that. I totally agree. And that was the one highlight he had was the big dunk, and he kind of went down, and I was encouraged he popped up. I mean, everything about this for everybody involved. Just don't get hurt. I don't want
Yeah.
anybody to get hurt, no ever, but especially in an off-season thing and non-NBA work and playing with a team that's kind of have a dead end. But look, I don't blame any. Obviously, you want to play for your country, and he's the only NBA player on the roster, so like a lot is asked of him.
Yeah.
It's a tough situation for him. But
I've always been curious, like, do NBA teams have like anxiety about guys playing in EuroBasket from what you've heard?
They won't tell you that, but yes, they absolutely do. And so some of them are different. Like, maybe it's different injury histories. Like guys that have injury history, and we'll talk about one of them in a second with Porzingis, maybe a little bit more.
Right.
But on the other side, like there are some players, and Luka's one of them, for example, where it's like I am playing always. And teams just know that, and the player, and a player is not going to stop the team's not going to stop a player from playing, generally speaking. They might try to talk you out of it if it's not like a thing that you're definitely passionate about. But if you're Vit, this is like your time to be like, you're the guy on your national team. This is EuroBasket. Like they're probably not going to be in the Olympics. They probably won't qualify. Like this is the time. This is the biggest tournament you're going to play in. The Hawks are never going to stop from playing. But yeah, I'm sure. In fact, I know. Front offices, I don't know about coaching staff as much, but front offices are probably like they're just doing this the whole time. They're just crossing their fingers. And
yeah.
Well, I mean, Risacher is one though. Honestly, go back to him and we'll move on. I'm sure the Hawks are totally fine with him playing. They have not told me anything negative about him playing. Like I think he might have gone to summer league if he didn't go to EuroBasket. That's probably the only thing that actually impacted was like he might have played 2 games in summer league if he wasn't going to go play with France. But I think smartly they were like, what we don't need Zach to do, ramp it up in late June, early July, and then be playing basically full bore all the way to like mid-September, and then have no break at all. Like that was smart. As soon as they realized, Zach's going to be like a real guy on the France national team for EuroBasket, let's not have him go to Summer League. And I agree with that decision, even though it would have been fun to watch him at Summer League. But that was probably why he didn't go. All right, that is it for today's show. Again, later on this week, I'll be joined by David once again for another wide-ranging conversation when it comes to Porzingis and, of course, Alexander Walker, Luke Kennard, and more. Please follow David's content. He is at DLeaf43 on all social media platforms, as well as he runs Hawks Film Room. Great content there. Please subscribe to Locked on Hawks. Anywhere you'll find your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked on Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And follow my non-podcast work at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody. Stay tuned. We'll see you later on this week, and enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. We'll see you all next time.